This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
Pierce.
Say it before we
I don't know.
Don't want to say it.
I don't. For anybody joining this podcast right now, we've been doing great Karnak jokes from the Carson show, and like we're all just going, May, you know. So
yeah, giving Don Rickles a run for his money. He's probably just looking at us from his grave, saying, "What the hell are you amateurs doing?" My job to roast everyone. Yeah, so you sound good on my end, guys. And here we are. We are talking about all sorts of shit. Yeah, we're already getting into it. We're cursing up a storm. Infamous sci-fi blockbusters and noteworthy box office flops. So we're going to just kind of skedaddle around. Every era is here. Don't get me wrong. I mean, list them here now, but truth be told, we're going to likely just do what we usually do with all the canceled sitcoms and just outrageous variety shows and infamous music stars who we love but are terrible people. You know, it's like we're just going to go bananas here. Before we start, just remind you all while listening, just laugh. Just laugh.
yeah.
I'm not paying you to laugh, but just laugh.
If we were paying you to laugh, we'd be doing episodes of Dharma and Greg.
Or Jimmy Fallon. Does anyone even laugh at a guy who laughs at his own jokes? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I was always just keen, and it was inevitable. I was watching anything by Industrial Light and Magic growing up, and plenty of other just retro stuff. But it was just so wild how half the time you'd get hyped up for a certain movie, and even though it felt incomplete or like Too Many Cooks or like an acid trip, you just had to talk about it. You wanted to study it more, or even see where it went wrong, or why was it hated by everybody?
Yeah.
The Wizard of Oz, for God's sakes, 20 directors, and people are like, "Oh, it was a hit." I'm like, "It wasn't a hit.
No,
It's a Wonderful Life. It was just in the repeated, Turner library, and
a lot.
Jammed down our throats to the point that we loved it.
It was on a spinning wheel, all right."
Well, there's that thing where, like, a movie just comes out and like it's so built up, and then it just comes crashing down.
The advertising just not come through.
I mean, I'm trying to remember a movie that was like the first time I can remember really thinking about a movie that was hyped up so much, and then it just fell apart.
Hudson Hawk. I don't know.
No. It keeps coming back to me. It's like I can remember like just sitting in the movie theater. It was 1989. We're watching this movie, and I'm like, "What the fuck happened here?" And I go back and I watch it, and I'm like, I still go, "What the hell happened?" And then you realize, and that's Star Trek V: The Final Frontier.
Yeah.
All right, now
what does God need with a spaceship?
Yeah, what does God need with a
That's
spaceship?
the best line in the movie, yes. But it does feel like a Canon Films movie that same year as Cyborg and even stuff like Robot Jocks, and you're just like,
yeah, it was. I mean, they're coming off of 4, which is one of the best films in the series. It was that trilogy,
great
2,
comedy.
3, and 4.
Double dumbass to you. That's what I say to whoever greenlit
great
Part 5.
comic lines. There's a theme of the ecology. We got to save the whales and all that. And then they come out with this movie that felt like an hour and a half episode. But when you read back on it, the script was basically, it was like 3 different scripts.
The comic book and even novelization have so many moments, including another monster that tries to attack them. So that makes better sense. That would have, had they actually filmed it, they couldn't, because Shatner had already pocketed most of the money and the effects budget wasn't there, which is stupid because
the reason what he wanted ILM.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get ILM because ILM was work. Oh, here's some things. They wanted to get ILM. They couldn't get ILM because ILM was doing Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted Sean Connery to play Cyborg. He couldn't get Sean Connery because Sean Connery was already attached to Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That's why the planet is known as Shakari. Sean Connery. That's the play on the name.
I have heard of that, but it's been a minute, and I will applaud Strange New Worlds for actually trying to add to the mythology that one movie and one novelization in a comic couldn't answer. But to be fair, Connery could have only done so much. He decided instead, how about I do Highlander 2?
Yeah.
Was Neil Connery not?
Neil Connery was busy getting surgery, probably. But yeah, it would have been a fun draw. I mean, they've had so many other celebs, like the Tatum O'Neills and Stephen Fords of the world, I call them. But yeah, it's just it is just very sad because you're just like, it could have been a fun buddy movie had they just canceled on the campfire shit. But they go into a weird tangent, like 20 minutes of nothing really happening and Scotty getting drunk for no reason, and then you finally have action again, but by then you're still kind of confused. What's going on? And
a point of order here. It's Scotty. He's going to be drunk. It's just the way
he doesn't get drunk in the movie. I don't remember him getting drunk in the movie.
I think the actor was drunk on set, but you see him kind of moving his hands a lot around a bit.
Oh, yeah. But the thing I love is like, now all of a sudden there's like him and her are dating.
Yeah, where did that come from? Yeah, and why is she doing a striptease to all these Mad Max natives?
and it's like, okay, granted that he brought in some really good casting because he had Harv Bennett play the head of Starfleet.
That was fun.
Had
the producer.
He had David Warner. He had David Warner come in. Who was going to play in the next? I think they gave David Warner the Chancellor role in Star Trek 6 is kind of like like, I'm sorry we did this. You're gonna play Chancellor Gorkin, and
Spice Williams Crosby, this great stunt woman who's been on everything, Scrubs and everything. She was really funny as that masculine Klingon gal who's kind of got a thing for Sulu. But again, they don't use them enough, and you're like, they're so funny. They could have been an amusing riff. Like they're always in the Delta Quadrant, like running into Starfleet, and it would just be a funny rivalry. But the most we get is probably Spock being unusually heroic and destroying God, because only Spock can do that, apparently.
Well, the thing is that, it almost killed the franchise.
It really did. It didn't make much money.
Almost killed it. I remember the joke on Saturday Night Live, Dennis Miller saying, work has begun on the next Star Trek movie. It's going to be Star Trek 6, The Apology.
Yes. And he's one to talk since he ruined Tales from the Crypt portal.
But I mean, it was just. I remember sitting in the movie theater. My friends and I walked out, and we were like, "What the hell did we just? That was a terrible Star Trek movie." There are some great parts. Shatner climbing. Kirk climbing El Capitan.
Oh yeah, the jet boots are fine, but yeah,
the jet boots.
Had they just had like 3 extra scenes, cut out the 20-minute. Just where nothing's happening, they might have been able to rescue it better. And it is a movie I would love to see the director's cut up. I like if there's a 4K remastered and just extra deleted scenes put back in, I'll take it. Versus,
and I got to say this though, Shatner, he was trying to get the movie right, and Paramount was basically saying to him, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this, because they were sinking more money into Indiana Jones, and they knew Indiana Jones was going to be the movie that year, and they were like, so it makes, I think it made 53. I gotta look this up. Hold on. it made something like
in $80, guys. So disclaimer, just take it with a grain of salt.
yeah. So Star Trek V. Okay, yeah, V is 5. The Final Frontier comes out in '89. It made $63 million on a $33 million budget.
Oh.
So that's not that good. Then it follows, then you got Star Trek 6, which made more money. And it was kind of like it's the lowest of lowest rated of all the Star Trek movies on Rotten Tomatoes.
Which doesn't make any sense because it's like it's appreciated now, but I will still encounter Trekkies who I don't know why they just don't care when Trek gets political, even though that's part of Trek. Trek is everything: Western, religion, philosophy.
The thing I liked about it was, the introduction of Cybox, Spock's brother, who, it was good. But as you're watching Lawrence Luckinbill, you're thinking, okay, I know that actor from somewhere. And I realized it was Lucy Arnaz's husband, because I'd seen him do LBJ on some my parents used to let me watch like great performances or something like that. Yeah. And he played LBJ one time, and he was great as LBJ. And then I was kind of like, thinking about it more and more, and I'm like, God, this was just so bad. I mean, it was just, it was just like, my God. I mean, they couldn't think about, then 2 years later they put out The Undiscovered Country, and that made $96 million on a $30 million budget. So one makes three. Let's see, maybe 3 and 6, 3 and 3.5 of a budget.
And
it was great. It was great, but they brought back, that one. They brought back Nicholas Meyer. They had Nimoy write the script.
They constantly argued with Roddenberry to where he was just. It was amazing they got anything in the can.
Yeah,
because that's when he was losing his mind, and then they're trying to figure out, okay, we made the plot a little complex. We got to have one more vision to explain the conspiracy better, and it's just like, just let it play out, guys.
So, and that's the thing, because I've always said about Star Trek V, it's the weakest of the bunch. Everybody says it's Star Trek the motion picture, or you could put the Search for Spock. No, Star Trek V is the weakest, and Star Trek V to me was a bomb. So,
well, and then, fair enough. I mean, because it just shows you kind of like any bad episode that just leaves a sour taste in an otherwise impressive season. And just like you see one unneeded chapter in an otherwise impressive book, it's just when there's so many dents in the road, you kind of just want to you just really want to know what went wrong. It wasn't just communication. It wasn't just money. It wasn't just even what the script was doing, but clearly something other than just disagreements occurred, and I want to know more. And if it has to be the Room equivalent of track, I'm fine with that. It's just if we have to, but give us a little more instead of, well, we told you all we needed. And Shatner, unfortunately, he tells some interesting stuff, but he never takes responsibility. He's just too proud.
I don't think he takes responsibility. I think he's like, look, I had my shot. I did it. That's it. I'm done. I move on.
My ego found out it was too big.
I don't know how. I think he just says to himself, I don't know how the hell Nolan Boy did this for two shoots. I don't know how the hell. And we were all giggling in the movie theater when we said directed by William Shatner, because then we just started thinking it's all going to be about him, but we're just like, God, directed by William Shatner, Jesus Christ.
And ever since that, all he did was a hysterical episode of Perversions of Science, which is by the Tales from the Crypt guy. It was one of their other anthology shows that was kind of like Outer Limits, and a full moon movie, but that's about it.
Yeah, that's it. He's like, and I was just thinking to myself, I was thinking, he brings it, it's like, it should have been, he brings in the Jerry Goldsmith score.
Oh yeah.
while they're having climbing the rock, and I'm like, da, 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 da. I'm like, okay, yeah, God damn it, why can't they just show outer space? It should have been outer space, and then it cuts to him climbing the rock. You know,
Yes.
that's been great. You know, but I don't know what happened with this. It's like they just went, okay, here's a Star Trek movie. Two, come on, okay, good. You know, move along,
Move along.
move
Nothing
along.
to see here.
Nothing to
All
see.
right, people, goes over. Go see Indiana Jones. You know.
Arr, don't you know? Oh man. So, well, as we go on, there's going to be so many others that, again, don't lose your shit on us, ladies and gents. We're not saying all of these are bad. All of these are great. We're just examining why are they just kind of out of this world, pun intended, just crazy. And so I had a few others listed here. Logan's Run is kind of like the
Oh,
first movie I think of when I think cult movie.
yeah.
Oh,
It's
yes.
like it kind of revitalized sci-fi, and it's so
Yeah.
odd how I look at George Lucas's early movie THX 1138, and I really feel like he was definitely trying to ape the Logan's Run formula, just escape from a dystopian collective. Race against...
138. I think did 1138 came before Logan's Run.
Oh, it did. Okay, well,
Yeah.
So there you go.
So, but Logan's Run was such a it's a movie that sucks you in.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Michael
you're
York
right,
has charisma, and Farrah Fawcett can't deny.
Well, you get Jenny Augeter in it, who's like, that's the first time I really was like going, "Ooh, wow, she's hot,"
Yes. Ooh,
the
it's hot in there.
the thing where it's like, the people. I always crack up about that movie because I'm like thinking, by the age of 30, you will not be, people die by the age of 30, right? And
Yes.
it's like this thing where like these people, like, last day, 2334, sign of the Capricorn, and you see these people come into like a centrifuge, like there's all these people going, carousel, right, Tom? Carousel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what sucked me in most of all because it goes so against what we would think about. People are willingly going to their deaths, and those who deny it are shot or struck down by the Sandman.
Yeah, or they escape and they come into Box, played by Roscoe B. Brown, and they're frozen. And the part I love about Carousel is like you see all these people. They're all wearing like these white hoods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And take them down, and they're wearing like these jumpsuits that look like the Calgary Flames designed them for their hockey games, and they're wearing hockey masks, right?
Yeah.
And they've got the black eyeliner on, and they start going in that center, and they hold up their hands, and their hands are clear, and they start doing the centrifuge thing. I got freaked out by that when I was a kid because I didn't understand what the hell it was about, and I realized what that thing was an electrical current that goes through your body and basically blows you up.
Mm-hmm. It's even worse. And this was years before we pretty much just went back to just explosives, like Running Man style. This is just straightforward.
It's done so romantically though. Like these people are flying, and the people are going renew, and then,
renew.
Yeah, and then Francis and Logan are walking through the center with the little babies, and he goes like, that's Logan 6 right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's him reborn again, and then he finds the truth about what's going on. And that movie did. I mean, I saw that movie when I was like about 7 or 8. No, I was about 6, 7 years old, and I was like, wow. They got to escape. This. My parents were letting me like watch shit that I, most kids were watching like Sesame Street or something like that. I was watching Logan's Run, and I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the whole thing of like them, and then you find out later, actually, they're living in a domed city that's in the United States, which was filmed in Texas.
Yes, I've been to those areas. Yep.
And the whole thing is like,
even knew a guy who was an extra in one of the crowd scenes. He now owns a theater company.
The thing I loved about Michael York is that he's so good in that movie. He is. I mean, Like, he was the guy because he was coming off of Cabaret. He was coming
I
off of
forgot he was in Cabaret. Oh my god.
yeah. He was coming off of Cabaret. He was coming off of what other movie was he doing? Like the Zeffirelli films. So he was
Yeah,
kind of
that sounds.
he was kind of like he was the guy to get for a romantic leading man, and
Mm-hmm.
to put to an action movie like that is really impressive.
Yeah,
and then
and
He looks
go ahead.
comfortable in it, considering again, just this was his chance to shine, and I've never heard him say, I regret that, blah, 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 blah. It just seems like he's just one of the few calm guys.
and you had Jenny Agutter, who was coming off of Walkabout.
Ooh,
Farrah Fawcett, who had just done, I think she was just about to do Charlie's Angels.
that sounds about right.
Peter Ustinov.
Yeah, I was going to mention him because Peter Ustinov added a level of gravitas to that movie. It wasn't something. Michael Yorkin was a fantastic actor. No complaints against him, but against Ustinov, you needed somebody like that to elevate the story just by his mere presence.
Yeah,
and his role was so fantastic. It was just.
I mean, way, and then you got Richard Jordan playing Francis, who's chasing them around. He was a big, he was a character actor, so they had him. And then the way they did everything was just like, kind of like everything's kind of like it's like a hedonistic future,
Yep.
You've got like the one guy who's the plastic surgeon. You've got the sex shop. The love shop. It's called the Love Shop.
Right. We know what they mean, but they are.
Yeah, that's trippy to watch. It's like the future is going to be like hedonistic and wild, and then but yet you realize all it is just you're here to be wired to be blown up, and there's a place called Sanctuary, and if you get there, you're good. If you don't get there, you're screwed. And that's the one thing I loved about it. So that movie did. It did bring. I mean, it's 75, 2 years before Star Wars, and it's a good movie to watch. I know they recycled a lot of that footage for like Mork and Mindy and Ice Pirates.
I think I did hear about Ice Pirates, but I forgot about it was in that. But I had no idea about Mork and Mindy connection. That's
and the thing about it is that they dealt with. With a lot of heavy subjects, but he did it in a way that wasn't ham-fisted. It was, you kind of knew what was going on. The introduction kind of set the stage for it, but then it's in the periphery throughout the rest of the movie, and then it's introduced. It's there. You're aware of it. I mean, you're dealing with ecological disasters, overpopulation, things that were big in the minds of a lot of people.
And we all thought about it because it's just we saw troubling news, and it wouldn't take much to just keep everyone up all late at night looking at the TV and then realizing, oh, I better get to bed because I have work and an unforgiving employer.
And another movie. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Tom, go ahead. Go ahead, man.
Another movie I would put in that same kind of pantheon would be Soylent Green.
Yes.
It deals with a lot of the same issues.
Yeah.
So many.
In a different way.
Yeah.
And you had the same kind of level of gravitas. You had Charlton Heston as the main character, and you can empathize with him. You see, and then Edward G. Robinson as the old man.
That was fun.
Doing and it's elevating the role or elevating the entire movie just by being there.
And that was his last role. I think he died like a couple months later. He was dying of cancer. And you have Chuck Connors in it. You have Rock Peters. You have Joseph Campbell.
Rock, man. He is great.
Joseph Campbell, Lee Taylor Young. I'm trying to think who the hell else was in that. Dick Van Patten is in it.
Oh, wow.
He plays the head of the factory where they
Is he
make
the best
Soylent
of the
Green.
Van Pattens? Is the
Yeah,
real question.
and the thing about that movie was that, you know, we just passed the year Soylent Green was,
It was 2019, wasn't it?
but the ending of Soylent Green was so. I mean, it's two diametric opposites. Okay,
Yes.
Soylent Green is this movie of a dystopia where there's no utopia, and Logan's Run is a utopia that is a dystopia. You know what I'm saying?
There
So
you go.
it's a dystopia with a it's a dystopia with a utopian, like utopia theme, because you got to remember all the upper crust people live well, all the lower class people, they're screwed.
Yeah.
The utopia of Logan's Run is they're all living to be, they're young, they're hip, they're free, they have sex, they can do whatever they want, but
More naughty than Westworld if you think about it, even though Westworld
it comes at a price. You die before when you turn 30. And that's it. And no one knows about the outside world because they've all been raised in a dome. And the thing I watch, and Tom, you can look at this too, is that when Peter Ustinov enters the place, this dome, right after everything's blown up and gone to shit, he's looked on as like Christ almost, like an old man. All the young people look at him, and he's like they're touching him, they're looking at him, and he's like this like Christ-like figure because he's someone they've never seen before. An old man.
Do you notice in certain angles he does look like he has almost Jesus Christ like hair at times?
Yeah, and the thing I love is like they make him to be this like doddering old man, but you're as I had a mother and a father, and then they're buried out there. He talks about everything. It's like when you hear this guy was a 2-time Oscar winner, by the way. So there's no way he went to this role going like okay. He went in there and he made this character pop, and that's the thing I love about him.
Speaking of pop, there's a lot of that happened on Caligula with the great Peter O'Toole and Harold Merritt.
Oh.
Definitely another dud. And just the more I read about it, it's just more interesting how there might be 5 versions of that damn movie.
They're gonna do the ultimate cut.
The ultimate cut.
Oh, Jesus. The last time I heard ultimate and cut was at Milton Berle's Briss.
No, that is a cut.
The story goes with that movie Caligula. I'm going to tell you a personal story. My father, the guy who lived next door to me, owned a theater, right? Bob Bateson, God bless him. He passed away a couple of years ago from COVID.
I'm sorry.
He was my uncle. He was like my Uncle Bob. You know how you have a neighbor and he's like your uncle, and you have
you're around all the time. You're basically family.
Yeah. He was my grandfather's best friend. My grandfather John's best friend. Him and John McKay knew lived next to him. So anyway, Bob tells my father, "Hey Frank, I got a copy of Caligula. We're gonna screen it. You want to come see it because I heard it's really crazy." He actually saw it. He's like, "You won't believe what you're gonna see." So my father tells my mother, he says, "I'm gonna go down to the movies. Bob's taking me to the movies. We're gonna see this movie Caligula." My mom's like, "Oh, okay, all right. I'll stay here home with Jay, and you go down to the movies and you guys have fun." My father came home, I think maybe about half an hour, 45 minutes later after the movie started. And he turns to my mother and he says, I've only walked out of like 2 or 3 movies in my life. This made me want to, he got up, they were watching it, and he was like, I couldn't believe what I saw on the screen. Yes. I couldn't believe it. Because what he saw, he was like, my father, Catholic upbringing, but he was very, he was a very man of the world. But this was just like, holy shit. People were walking out of the movie theater. Mm-hmm. It was a packed house and people were walking out.
Yeah, because they thought it was a legit movie, not a drive-in type.
They They thought they were going to, because it said Gore Vidal. Gore Vidal wrote the script, right?
That's right. Oh, that's right.
Oh God.
Gore Vidal writes the script, right?
The political progressive guy. Yep.
Okay. Gore Vidal writes the script, right? You have Tinto Bra, who's done a great movie called Salon Kitty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fine. You get Malcolm McDowell. Okay. He's the guy, the guy to get. He's just done, Oh Lucky Man, and he's going to do Time After Time, and he's going to do he's done If, the Lindsay Anderson movies.
That's why McDowell trusted him. He's like, you did a good job on that serial killer trilogy.
Yeah, no, what? No, the Lindsay Anderson trilogy? No, that's not the serial killer trilogy. No. He played Mick Travis in If. And then he did the sequel, Oh Lucky Man. No, it's okay. But then they get Helen Mirren, who's like, British sex kitten. You've got, you got Peter O'Toole, who is, one of the most well-respected actors in the world. He's going to play Tiberius. You've got John Gielgud playing Nerva, not the future emperor, but a senator who was a friend of Tiberius. Because this is what, and Gore Vidal went in and he wrote this stuff accurately. Then Guccione's going to produce it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. They have the movie they have the movie done, but Guccione says, "I've got to put my own spin on it." So he goes. They're filming, I think, in Cineterta Studios, which was in Italy. He would go in after the studio closed and film hardcore pornography scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And insert them into the movie. So you see like women eating each other out. You see guys, and then I'm going to say, guys, ejaculating. I mean, the scenes with Malcolm McDowell where he fists the guy in during the wedding scene. Okay, yeah, that's kind of like,
what the hell?
Are you a virgin, Proculus? You are a virgin. He says, I Caesar Caligula. They wanted to do it where he sodomized the guy, right?
Oh, Jesus.
And Malcolm McDowell's like, yeah, I am not going to do that. He says, why don't I just do this? So he, they do the scene with, him putting the fist, right there. And he has sex.
Leave it to your imagination. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He has sex with the bride. And he says, I Caesar Caligula. And he puts the fist. And my father said, he was like, I can't believe what I fucking saw. And I actually watched it. And I watched it on DVD. And I had to turn it off. I had to turn it the fuck off. Because to me, it was like watching a bad pornographic movie. Now,
a pornographic movie.
Yeah, because remember,
but like even by porn standards, like it's really, really, really bad.
Tinto Bra disowned it. Gore Vidal took his name right off this is shit. I'm not. The script is just, I'm not being involved in this. I don't care about this. This is something I don't want to have even my name attached to, because Guccione was trying to keep up with Hefner, because Hefner had done Playboy. He'd done, I think, one or two movies. He hired
these guys from Hustler.
Yeah. So the guy, Penthouse.
That's what it was. Okay. Shit.
Yep.
So, it was, and it was hyped. It was so hyped, Bob Guccione gives you, the maddest, the madman, his reign was a reign of blood. And you hear like that, that whole thing about, dun, 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 you hear that music, and it's like, I, Caesar Caligula, ruled, from the day the sun rises to when the moon rises. And it's all this, stuff, the madman Caligula was, and it's like this, it was like this hyped up film. And I've actually like heard stories of like John Gielgud. Malcolm McDowell was walking down the street, and he said, "Oh, he saw John Gielgud walking out of the theater," and he said, "Oh, Sir John, how good to see you." He says, "Oh, you just watched Caligula?" "I saw it 2 or 3 times, my boy." "You did?" "There's so many great cocks in that movie." I mean, Gielgud was gay, and like, he's like, "Oh, you can't believe how many cocks I saw. Oh, so glorious." And so, and like, Malcolm McDowell's just going like, "Oh God, Jesus, this is so funny to watch." It almost sank a lot of careers.
It really did.
Malcolm McDowell did come back, and he did Time After Time, And that was, and he did some movies. Helen Mirren, I think, kind of was went to Britain for a while. Peter O'Toole did The Stuntman after
Yes, he
that,
did.
and he did My
And
Favorite Years from
Supergirl.
All Was Forgiven. And Gielgud won the Oscar like 2 years later for Arthur.
Yeah, unheard of.
So but this Caligula was just so hyped up. It was just, and people were paying money to go see it, and they were getting up and walking out of the movie theater, because it was like they were expecting a historical drama, because 3 years before I, Claudius had come out, and they were expecting a big giant lab. No, they were getting a freaking porno movie, And I'm sitting there, I just went. Now they're gonna have the ultimate cut, and I'm like, ultimate cut? What do you mean ultimate cut? And Tinto Bra is screaming and yelling, "Let me be involved in this! Don't put out something I'm not involved in." Because he's trying to fight the studio to not put it out. And there's like 5 different versions of it, from what I can gather.
Yep, and there's yet to be a consensus on whether there's a better version of said movie. But
I don't think there is.
Exactly. That's a good there isn't.
I mean, the parts I crack up about is like, he's got that one part where he's got the people not in the Coliseum.
He's got like a gay slave and a few other things, and
he's got the thing where this wall is moving and there's like blades underneath it, and it cuts the people's heads off.
Oh jeez, yeah.
Oh, it's just weird to watch, but it's just oh my God. I mean, I've never seen a movie that made me want to get a shower and a penicillin shot after I watched it.
Yes. Well, and we all like all kinds of guilty pleasures and stupid lowbrow movies. When you literally make everyone feel dirty for even wanting to watch something that's stupid, it's just like, do I just have bad taste in cinema, or is there even a limit to excess?
Well, I think the thing too is like, they were thinking they were doing a historical movie, and they were.
At one point, yeah.
At one point, and then it just was like Gucci was like, I need to put my own spin on things, and he just did what he did, and like
give them what they want, or at least what
Tinto Bra looked at it and went, "What the hell is this crap?"
Oh,
I still to this day remember my mother actually getting the videotape with my father.
Oh dear. And
they began to watch it, and he was like, "Sandy, what you're gonna watch is, it's not good." And she's like, "Oh, well, it's got a good cast in it. Just because it's a good cast doesn't mean it's gonna be a piece of shit,
Mm-hmm.
But
it was just kind of our learning process in the video store days. It's like, I've never heard of this.
But here's a thing, an interesting little side note. There was a movie that came out right after that, called Caligula: The Untold Story, with Laura Gesmer, who played Emmanuel, and David Keane Houghton, who played the bad guy in Cave Dwellers.
Oh God.
And it's you could watch these two, like, this movie was just it was done by Film Ventures, I think, and they were trying to capitalize on Caligula. So that came out, and it was like,
yeah, it was
what the fuck is this movie about? But
I do kind of have fun with that stupid movie, but I think it's just the villain's Indiana Jones type baddie. Thinks he's doing just great work, and it's like, no, you're kind of just being silly.
You're just and I mean, to this day, I still think Caligula is like the one movie that I will try to sit down and watch it, and I'll go as far as I can, and I'll be like, no more, no.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can't see this. This is fucking ridiculous. This is like, I've seen movies where I've just started laughing because of the,
how
like Monty Python, like Monty Python and the Holy Grail, or something like that. This is just making me want to, like, go and like hide in the closet and cry in a shower, like the Crying Game. I mean, this is
oh God.
I mean, this is like, this is like, the one part where they had like they had people made up like hermaphrodites on the set, and I'm like, what the fuck is this all about? Wait, what? what is this? What
Why?
is like? Well, no, it's ancient Rome. No, it's not ancient Rome. This is some guy with a view of like
He's filming the
perversion.
whole movie on Betamax. Whoa.
Yeah, why doesn't that wait? Why is she doing that to her? And why wait? Do these
I
women
walk into the
even
wrong
why?
movie.
And there are parts where people just disappear and reappear for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
And there was one woman on that movie, I think Teresa Ann Savoy, who was the penthouse pet.
Yes.
She sued Guccione.
Did she win?
She won. I think she won like a settlement. And I was kind of like going, oh wow, that's great. I'm gonna go take a shower and pretend and wash my eyeballs.
Scrub them real good because
Scrub them good and
they realized
a black eye
at
is
this
more
point-
preferable. That's how bad this is.
It was at this point that eye bleach became a thing.
Incest was viewed as sexy.
Yeah. Oh God. These are my ancestors. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Oh man.
God help us all.
Our ancestors, man. Our ancestors. So there's too much to discuss, and we can sum it up or even do a two-part. But either way, I mean, there's just so many other just duds that I'll just kind of, I feel like we can sum them up, but kind of just like illustrate them by, shall we say, just era. So like,
Yeah.
the 70s.
Yeah.
There's every other, Dawn of the Dead, Star Wars knockoff.
Yeah.
And the 80s, no different. You got Space Hunter, Battle Beyond the Stars, and Star Raiders from Corman.
Oh yeah, I always say Space Hunter was a great is a great cult movie. Battle Beyond the Stars is a great cult movie. Star Raiders.
It's okay,
I like it,
but it's a little slow.
I it's slow. It's confusing. The plot goes like basically, A, B, and C. I don't know
Some
where
of
the
the
hell.
sets look like Time of the Apes at times. Do you ever get that?
Yeah. Well,
just that whole escape and jump onto a spaceship kind of set. That's what I call that.
Well, the thing I love is that they use the same ship from Battle Beyond the Stars in Space Raiders.
Yes, they do.
And the thing that's always cracked me up about that is like you've got Tom Christopher, our favorite, our favorite guy from
Buck
Rogers. Yeah.
But he was kind of like a guy Corman, put in these movies,
He
and
put him to work.
He's good. And Space Raiders had Vince Edwards in it. And my mother, we rented it. My mother rented it. My mom and dad rented it for me because I was so into Star Wars. And they go,
How we're gonna be?
hey, that's Ben Casey. And I'm like, who? So it's like, Jay, he was on a show called Ben Casey when I was a kid. And then later I'd watch Ben Casey and I'd be like, no, it all makes sense.
Anyone who's been on TV.
Dr. Zorba was on, and I was going to make the joke. I said, when's Dr. Zorba going to show up on Space Raiders? But then you realize Sam Jaffe was on Battle Beyond the Stars. He played the old guy on the space station.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince Edwards was in Space Raiders. So,
you can make the argument they're the same character.
Can I just say this?
Yeah.
Was Sam Jaffe born 93 years old?
I mean, he's always looked crusty. I mean,
I said one night I was like watching. I was like, every movie's been. He's old. Did he like lay out in the desert and he's 45? Geez, Sam, how old are you? 45. Christ, you look like you're 70.
Yeah, I will say this though: the 1980s for me was that sweet spot for movies that bombed at the box office but gained new life after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
There was one I remember very vividly because of all the merchandising around it. One called Megaforce.
Oh yeah,
yes.
I was gonna mention that. Yes,
Megaforce was one that bombed the box office, but I remember it.
HBO hit,
I loved
and
it. HBO hit and videotape.
Barry Bostwick still does conventions, and he says it's very big in Germany for whatever reason.
Rip, what was
There are
his
a lot
name?
of things big
Rick
in
Hunter.
Germany.
Rick Hunter.
Rick
No,
Hunter
they're
is his
good.
name, and Henry Silva's in it, and all other kinds
Michael Beck, and
Hal Needham and V'ger from Star Trek.
Perseus Kambata is in it, and the guy from the Ghost and Mrs. Muir, the guy who played the captain in the show.
Edward Mulhare.
Edward Mulholland. Yeah.
Okay.
If somebody was going to say Charles Nelson Riley, I would have been like, no, he's not in the movie, because he would have been like, oh, lizards. That's a great movie that bombed, and now it's getting like that second chance, because it was like G.I. Joe,
It really is Mad Max meets G.I. Joe. It's literally it. And yet,
and you got other movies like The Black Hole, Tron, Last Starfighter.
Starfighter, yes.
All right, I'll go one better. A movie that bombed and then they recut it and it got a better lease on life. Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate. That almost
love it. And yet it's so blasted, and you look at it and you're like, this was considered the worst movie of all time. It
went so over budget because Cimino was he just done The Deer Hunter.
Yeah, he never shook the ego, and he should have just been one of those, just nod your head, don't talk back to all the producers, because you're gonna just keep pissing them off. But he was very much like Francis Ford Coppola, where he was very opinionated, wasn't gonna hear it any other way, and The Offer's a great show, by the way. But it is interesting how he just, it's just, you look at it and to think that this is the final straw where you could revisit movies on home video and not be oblivious to there's two different cuts of it, and then realize this is good. Again, same kind of deal. You think, hey, great actors. There's people even unrecognizable in this, like Jeff Bridges and Sam Waterston, and Chris Christopherson and Chris Walken, really, really going for bat for this movie. And yet, it's just no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to be associated with it. No one wants to even give it any fair day in court.
Yeah. And like you've got Leone doing Once Upon a Time in America,
yes,
which flopped. You bring up The Last Starfighter. That's looked upon as a great movie because it was computer special effects. So was Tron.
Yeah,
but I'll go one better. Dune,
yes, the 80s one, just for clarification. Yeah,
Dune flopped. And the reason why it flopped was it was known as developmental hell. They wanted to they had art. Granted, it's a great series of books, but my background was that they wanted Ridley Scott to do it. They wanted to have Alejandro Jodorowsky, Arthur P. Jacobs. It was in developmental hell. Then they said, okay, Lynch is hot because he's just done The Elephant Man, and he's just done Eraserhead, and they gave it to him. And all I remember is watching the movie. I remember watching the movie, and I was really into it. But I remember my mother and my father talking during the movie, and they're like, "What the hell is going on here?" They gave you, Tom. Did any of you guys see Dune in the movie theaters?
Oh, the original 80s one.
I did not. I have watched. I watched the longest version that I could access, and
the one with the cut with the guy doing the voiceover, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's the better cut in my opinion, because the one that I saw when I saw it in the movie theater, if I would watch it now, I would riff it, because it's just they gave us a sheet to give you the terms of what was going on the screen, like Muad'Dib, through for all these. What's this? Was my father was like, I have no idea what the hell just happened on the screen.
Right.
It had a great
favorite
cast.
book, and the fact that this cycle just kept repeating, not only with just every version of Dune, but just having to tell the studios, hey, we want to give you your money back, but it's not that we're being unimaginative or pretentious or just stupid. We can't tell it unless we get 3 to 4 hours to tell it. It's just, that's how dense it is.
It should have been 2 parts like they're going to do now. It should have been 2 parts. And, even
the miniseries is actually pretty solid. If you want to just look at it from an editing or just just staging perspective and even set design. But yeah, it just seems like everybody always argues, and half the time producers, you can tell they can't even tell practical from special effects. Or
David Lynch at one point was like, just put my I don't want to be associated with, put my name Alan Smithy on it.
Mhm.
And you gotta realize they had a great cast. They had,
Patrick
Jürgen
Stewart,
Prochnow,
Virginia
Patrick
Madsen,
Stewart, Virginia Madsen, Anna Franciscus,
Jose
Anna
Ferrar, I think, is in
Jose
there.
Ferrar,
Jürgen
Cheyenne
Prochnow had a
Phillips,
bad time. He got
yeah,
burnt on an accident on the
yeah,
movie from
Max von Sydow,
I forgot
and
Max von
Kyle
Sydow.
MacLachlan,
Kyle
Sting.
MacLachlan, yeah, and then you realize like 3 years later, Lynch comes out with Blue Velvet, and all is
Yeah.
forgiven.
Right.
But here's the funny thing, though. When you think about box office bombs, I remember that movie Krull being heavily hyped.
Yes.
Krull.
Krull
Oh,
was
Krull. Oh my
Krull.
God. Yeah. Yeah.
It was so hyped up.
That,
But
they're
the
like,
thing,
it's going to make Lady Hawk money. No.
it's gonna be. Oh, it's a great thing. It's like a fairy tale in outer space.
Have you
And it
guys
was
watched that back to back with Hawk the Slayer?
Yes.
Yeah.
It'd be so much fun. Still waiting on that damn sequel. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I've seen people who will still rediscover it nowadays. They'll just get it at a convention or in one of those Mill Creek sets, and they'll still have a blast with it. There's just something, just whether it's intended or not, the goofiness is very infectious with that one. I don't know why, but it is.
Well,
And you can't talk about a goofy movie without referencing the Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai across the eighth dimension.
Oh
I
God.
thought about that one, but I somehow.
Oh my God.
Peter Weller is just sublime in that. Ellen Burke and Clancy Brown. John
They made
Lithgow,
comic book
Jeff
sequels to it.
Goldblum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
John Lithgow.
I was going to get the Jeff Goldblum because I was going to do the Jeff Goldblum over series. I was in this movie, and it was a really good movie. I really, really like it. Now I'm going to go over here and do a completely different movie called The Fly, which is a little bit different, but I got to wear my cowboy suit during some of it.
Vincent Schiavelli's in it. He plays one of the.
Yes.
And also,
didn't he play a sleaze or something, or did he do his usual like magician kind of tricks?
No, he did. He played like one of the John Smallberries.
Yeah,
he played one of the aliens.
Oh,
yep, the Red Lectroids.
The Red Lectroids, yeah. And then Carl Lumley's in it. He plays the Black Lectroid.
That's right.
Who helps, and he's like the coolest guy. He's like, I love him in that because he's like, and the ending is so great because you hear the ending comes on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you hear doo doo doo, and also you da da da, and everybody takes a bow at the end. I mean that to me, but that movie flopped. But I mean, I saw it in the movie theaters, and I was taken away by it because I was like, I remember seeing it with my dad and my friend Joey, and we were just like, this is so cool, because the comic books were, if you read the back of the comic books, Marvel comic books, they were hyping that movie up.
Oh yeah, but they did a recent one apparently. I think it's Boom or Dynamite.
Yeah, and they were going to do a sequel called Buckaroo Banzai versus the World Crime League, and it never came to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
But
I want to say that when the comic book groups tried to do that, or I think they tried to build off of that. I know I had a first issue or maybe a ash can edition of a Buckaroo Banzai comic book where they introduced new characters.
Yeah,
they still had Buckaroo Banzai, but
the Clancy Brown character didn't die. No, they said that he didn't. You think he's dead, but he's not. He's actually, when the thing hit him in the movie, it put him to sleep. So you think he's dead? He's not dead. He's not dead. Because even like Peter Weller, and I think the director was like, no, he doesn't die in it. But the thing I loved about that is the way the story was, because it's like Buckaroo Banzai, he's this like brain surgeon, physicist, rock and roll star, and Tom, if you watch the movie, the guy playing the president was the guy who played Toth in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Talk? Isn't that? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Talk.
I did not recognize those Talk.
And I will also, we forgot one person who was just fantastic in the movie. I'm not sure why they didn't give him more comedic roles after this. Christopher Lloyd.
Yeah.
He basically thought it was like Back to the Future, but even goofier.
It wasn't even Back
Yeah.
to the Future yet.
I just mean involving a vehicle.
Oh, yeah.
Sci-fi shit.
But, you know.
But yeah, no,
I
it's
love when
not
he
at
says-
all like the future.
But it's like he's like, will you do me a favor and open that up? And it's like they're like these like the red lectoids are like these like very stiff kind of guys, and the black lectoids are kind of like these like Rastafarian dudes. And I think that's the great thing about, you know, the great thing about that is like, you know, it's kind of like saying, hey, the red lectoids are the bad guys because they keep the black lectoids down. And I like the black lectoids because they're playing chess.
Yes.
I actually don't remember that. That's a movie I remember all the crazy just implausibilities. Not that but I just remember all the shit hitting the fan in that movie and just being like, okay, it doesn't make sense, but I kind of get why this is a cult movie.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of trivia involved with this too. You know, the spaceships they were using? Those were all based on crustaceans.
Yeah. I just
blew me away
that.
when I was a teenager and I found that out. Really? This shit actually exists?
Yeah, they're based on like bivalve shells and all that stuff. Because when you look at it, they're kind of like based on snail shells and stuff like that. I actually picked up a shell like a couple weeks ago. I was down at the shore and I was like, "This looks like the ship from Buckaroo Banzai," and I'm like, you know.
We'll return after these messages.
If you like small town mystery, crazy news, and wild history, then the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast is for you. Each week, Josh Mills and Wayne McCarty bring you the absolute best Florida has to offer. So if you're looking for a show that's safe for the family, but funny enough to help you escape everyday life, then listen to the Florida Men on Florida Man podcast. That's Florida Men, plural, on Florida Man podcast.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, "Give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win." On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world, and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
Well, Raiders hit that time too. Raiders and Temple of Doom. And I remember that Cannon jumped on the bandwagon with Richard Chamberlain,
Alan
King Solomon's
Quartermain.
Mines, and Alan Quartermain, The Lost City of Gold.
Oh yes,
with a very young Sharon Stone.
Mm-hmm.
And Richard Chamberlain said he loved doing those movies because he could just cut loose and not give a shit, you know. Because he'd been doing like, you know, the Thornbirds and Shogun and, you know, all that crap. It's like, you know, Dr. Kildare.
They didn't get along though, I don't think, did they?
No. From what I understand, they didn't. And I kind of take his side of the story because I'm kind of like, yeah, I can understand why you didn't like her, you know. But
truth be told, it just wasn't what they signed up for. But at the same time, you kind of have to just cut loose after a while if it's just not going the way you want.
And then they filmed those back to back. I keep thinking they did for some reason.
I think they did, or at least most of part one and maybe part of part two. But yeah, I mean, all the Cannon Films guys, you know, they all joke about how that was the most implausible just script to even just come up with. And it's like, we just don't know how to do this. The studio.
King Solomon's Mines had been done earlier in the 50s with Stuart Granger and Deborah Carr, but this was a little bit more like, you know, it was kind of campy, you know, kind of like, you know, all right, yeah, the joke's on us, you know, we know what's going on here, you know. And I think Richard Chamberlain's partner is in the movie playing his brother. His real life partner.
Oh, wow.
Is playing the second one, yeah, in Alan Quartermain. So he was like, yeah, you know, they got my you know, my partner in this one, and it was like fun to do, you know. they really did a good job. I like those movies. They're two big hokey movies, but then you had Louis Gossett Jr. and Chuck Norris and Firewalker.
Yes.
Which was, kind of, it's Chuck Norris not being Chuck Norris,
Yeah. As opposed to I'm invincible and all that shit.
I'm trying to think what else was out at that time where I was kind of like everything.
So we had plenty of other things. One that's extremely similar to Megaforce would be Battle Truck, and that's another one. Like, people keep rediscovering it.
I know.
I need to see this movie. I've never heard of it, and I have to see it along with Killdozer.
It could easily be a double feature with Killdozer. But...
Battle Truck?
Yeah, Battle Truck, 1982.
Oh my God.
Well, while we're on this, I have to throw in what was that? Damnation Alley.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. 77. Yep.
Yeah.
Paul
With
Winfield.
The young Jan Michael Vincent as somebody who resembles Stringfellow Hawk. But
who the hell was in that? I keep thinking Paul Winfield was in that movie.
Yeah, he was.
I know George Papard was too. And everybody gets it wrong because they think that the thing from Arc 2, the rover from Arc 2 was in Damnation Alley. It wasn't. It was a totally different thing.
Oh, really?
It was a totally different. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember seeing that movie going like, why are they going across the desert? Where are these giant radioactive cockroaches coming from?
Why are they trying to kill everybody?
And on the other side of the extreme, in the 90s, there were some ones that I think bombed the box office, but gained more respect. Films like Dark City. The Rocketeer. The Rocketeer was actually really popular, but there's also like Sky Pirate and the World of Tomorrow.
Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow.
Sky Captain, yeah, that's right.
I could never get into Sky Captain. I knew what it was trying to say. I didn't like the graphics and plot, but or Gwyneth Paltrow for that matter. But I understand the love for it because again, it was an ambitious attempt, and it does break my heart the more I find out about how literally that filmmaker compromised all the way through, and he still got fucked up.
Yeah, and the thing that gets me is that that's the last time we see Laurence Olivier on the screen.
That was his last movie.
Because
go ahead.
They basically got footage of him. He played the evil doctor in it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see him. I think he's dead. But if you watch at one point, they're going through remember they're going under the water, and you see the ship. You see the ship from King Kong in there. Yeah.
Wow.
And now they've mentioned Laurence Olivier, I have to throw in also the original Clash of the Titans.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
That's not so much sci-fi, but it did have that.
No, it's fine. Any fantasy or just giant effects epic that just didn't take off right away, that's fine. But yeah, I had a teacher who was obsessed with Harry Hamlin, and he was like, "If you're gonna watch this, watch it."
Yes.
Well, Harryhausen. That's like one of the last movies Harryhausen did.
Yeah, speaking of Harry's,
and Harryhausen,
I called it the House of the Harrys.
Yeah, my mom took me to see it when I was a kid. Now she was like, because she knew I loved all those, Jason and the Argonauts, and I was really into Sinbad.
This is a special kind of ambition, because I do like a lot of these picks because. Dark City, I did not care for that at first because the narration was very annoying. Then I found out down the road that was a studio decision, and kind of like Harrison Ford on the lesser cut of Blade Runner just decided, it doesn't need it, so I'm just not going to do my best take. Sorry.
The thing I've always been pissed off about is the versions of Blade Runner that I've seen. I like the Harrison Ford voiceover one, but it's kind of it's kind of hitting you over the head a little bit. But I never could get how Blade Runner was is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
For its time, blows, the graphics, everything. Ridley Scott did a great job. They do Blade Runner 2049 or something like that?
Yes, 2049. Yep.
And it tanked.
Mm-hmm.
Because the the thing was that the the thing was that the momentum was gone,
Yeah.
and to have this new guy come in, who I think is a replicant in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He is a replicant, and
Right.
we still don't know if Rick Deckard was a replicant or not. I don't know. We'll never know.
But we'll never know because the writer and star say he's not, and yet too late. Ridley has several frames where you can clearly see Harrison's eyes turning red in the background, like the Terminator, and it's just it's up to your imagination. But this is, long story short, I hate to say it, everybody's right. Fans are right, the writer and cast and crew are right, but it's gonna have to be left to your imagination, like a Lynch film, because the damage is done. Everybody cares so much about it after all that trouble, and I'm just glad that they've had time over all these years to just finally settle down and talk about it more coherently, and now people view it as great roles, especially for Daryl Hannah and Rutger Hauer. But then you would think that just those establishing shots of that city, that would have been iconic, but it wasn't. It was just an instant cable hit. Like Tron.
The part with Tron was amazing to watch.
I think so too. It's just, but we talk about Disney being scummy. You will read so many articles on how a female critic almost was threatened to lose her job if she gave Tron a 2 out of 4 star rating, and she just was not impressed. Many critics at that time, kind of like with Blade Runner, they loved the graphics but just thought the story was stale, and they clearly hadn't read too much books. But at the same time, it's just because so many, they're both kind of just the rarities along with the Rocketeer, because the audience reaction was so good. The studios just had to just finally just slowly, they'll never admit they're wrong, but they had to just give us more, because they're just like, hey, we overthought this whole thing. We should be ashamed of it.
And go ahead.
No, you first, Tom. Go ahead.
And for a while there in the 90s and even into the 2000s, they had sci-fi movies that are kind of along the same lines as some of the ones we've already talked about. We had Gattaca, which we had The Island or whatever. The Ewan McGregor one where they were, I think it was Scarlett Johansson and he were.
Yeah.
And then you had.
The Island,
they just kind of did a smattering of those. Mm-hmm. And then you got one like Children of Man. I absolutely love that movie.
Children of Men?
No.
Children of Men.
Oh, Children of Men. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I've never seen that one.
Don't like it or hate it, but it is well shot. And Clive Owen is very emotional in it.
Yep. And I will also throw in a shout out to the Book of Eli.
Yeah.
The Book of Eli, I liked the first time. I have a trouble with the plot twist ending, which I won't be a jerk and spoil. But Denzel's great in it, and Gary Oldman chews the scenery, and I do have to admire the Western tropes that.
Yeah. But the point is that with that, every like we've been saying, every decade seems to have its little niche, little place
nowadays,
where you're going to hit.
I'm seeing people talk smack about just movies that I thought were immortal, like no one had anything as bad to say about. But now I'm seeing a few people say, I don't care for the comedy in Caddyshack. Well, I'm like, really? Oh my god! And then I see they're saying Princess Bride, it's not that great a fantasy comedy. I'm like,
because they don't understand. See, what it is that this generation that's coming up now, they won't understand what we grew up with.
Or they're just now watching it because it's in the top 250. And it's like, well, don't go to IMDb as just the only reference. Go to some actual, there's plenty on iFilm playlists. Yes, every site's going to have some clickbait. But eventually, you're going to find someone who, regardless of whether you can enjoy this movie or not, they at least can translate this all for you in 3 sentences without overwhelming you.
Yeah, and I think the thing was that with a lot of the movies that bombed, now that you look back, you're like, oh, wait, there was a director's cut? Hold on, let's look at that.
Yeah.
Let's
now
look at that director's
own
cut.
5 versions of the same damn movie.
Laserdisc
and VHS.
And the thing with, when they recut They made a movie called 1900. If you remember that movie, 1900.
Oh yes, Bertolucci. Yes.
Yeah, Bertolucci does that movie. They recut that. They recut Once Upon a Time in America. They recut
Lawrence of Arabia.
Lawrence of Arabia. No, they've never touched Lawrence of Arabia.
Well, I don't mean that they doctored it.
Yeah.
But there were still some extended scenes that are now part of the same movie.
They were tinkerings, you know.
They brought in Jabba the Hutt for a brief interlude with the Lords of Arabia.
Yeah, that would be funny.
You
will die, Lawrence.
I think the thing that gets me too is like sequels bombed too. You know,
yes,
ones that you thought would have been like killed at opening night, and no one showed up, and there wasn't any bad hype or anything, but no one wanted another sequel, or they didn't know about it.
I remember Arthur 2. I remember one night we went to go see a movie. It was me, I think this girl I was with. I was about 14, 15 years old. I don't know. When did Arthur 2 come out?
Definitely 84-ish. It had to be mid-80s.
No, Arthur 2. I gotta think. Arthur 2.
I'm looking at Arthur 2. Okay, 88. My bad. So Arthur
all right, so
1 was 80.
I wasn't with anybody back then, but it was like Arthur 2 comes out, right? And it was like nobody wanted to see it because Dudley Moore, I think, had, unfortunately gone past his welcome in Hollywood, because he had done, he did Best Defense. He did
with Eddie Murphy.
With Eddie Murphy.
Mm-hmm.
He did he did what the hell else did he do? I forgot what else.
Wasn't there like a Santa Claus movie he was involved in?
He was in that Santa Claus movie, right?
Let's not forget 10.
10. Well, 10 kind of made him a superstar.
Right.
Arthur made him a superstar. And then he does
this one. I feel like this sequel, it was an honest attempt, kind of like Ghostbusters 2, and it wasn't uncommon to see people kind of see a sequel before they see the original. But
yeah,
I feel like this kind of went in the same terrain as Short Circuit 2.
It was just
the audience just didn't show up unless they were related to the actors. They thought cash grab, or they were tiring of sequels again, kind of like we are now. That's my theory.
The only good part in Arthur 2 is when John Gielgud shows up as a ghost, because that first Arthur movie I watched religiously. I would watch it.
It was very fun.
It was fun to watch.
Gentle.
Liza Minnelli was out of her comfort zone as an actress, because remember, she'd been doing My Name is Liza. She did Cabaret. Do You Love Me, Junie Moon, and all that stuff. She does this. She plays this waitress, and it's like you're watching the second one. You're like, oh, he's down on his luck. What's going to happen in the end? Oh, he's going to get the money back. Oh, that's great. It just didn't have. It'd been 6 years since the original, and Dudley Moore's career kind of ran out of steam at that point. And
to be fair, I think Hollywood really gave him a lame.
I think they did too.
It's like there's why can't you be like Monty Python?
Yeah,
not even realizing that Monty Python was not welcome in its home country. We love it. They think it's stupid because they're not paying attention.
And that year, that was the year that Superman: The Quest for Peace came out,
oh,
and that killed the franchise. And they were expecting it to be a big hit. It didn't make the money.
It didn't help that
they should have learned from Superman 3, but they didn't.
Well, and Christopher Reeve got they should have. They totally should. But he got so animated about it, and then pretended like it was about him against the Reagan Nuclear Act and everything, and no, that someone else wrote this before the next revision or whatever. And
he did it because they were going to give him a chance to do his own movie called Street Smart, which is a great movie.
That is a good movie with Freeman and Mimi Rogers. Yeah,
but he didn't get the chance to do Superman. First off, Superman should not be fixing the world's problems.
No.
And they bring in this guy, Mark Pillow, who's going to play the Nuclear Man. They bring the original cast back, Kidder, Mark McClure. They bring in, Jackie
like,
Cooper.
Every typical sequel, they spend, again, so much time on something not moving the plot along, and they're like, hey, kids want stupid jokes or him rescuing one person, they'll eat that up. And it's like, no, you really shouldn't, because it has nothing to do with Nuclear Man.
And let's not forget, John Cryer was in that movie, and he was still hot coming off of Pretty in Pink.
And Reed was like, just don't try too hard. I don't want you to be your career to die from this damn movie.
Yeah. And I think Christopher Reeve sat down and says, I know this is going to tank, but at least you're going to have fun doing it. And, I think the thing is like, Superman 1 and 2, great movies.
Yeah.
The Donner cut, phenomenal. 3 and 4.
I thought I was the only guy who liked the Donner cut. I never understood the hate for it. I was just like, he started it, and nothing against
Richard Lester.
He's done some of my favorite disaster movies. He's not Irwin Allen, but no one is, but that's okay.
Richard Lester did the first 2 Beatle movies.
Yeah.
And he did a funny thing happen on the way to the forum. But, the Donner cut is amazing to watch because there's a lot of things they eliminated that I like. But then they do 3, and 3 was like, all right.
The Richard Pryor Saves Robots show.
And the thing was, Pryor did it because he said on the Carson show, oh, I always liked Superman. And like, the guys from Warner Brothers were like, what? You like Superman? Hey, Rich, why don't you come on in and we'll just, we won't get hacked. Saul Guns were like, okay, bring him in. Yeah. And we can't bring you back Gene Hackman because he's still pissed at us. Margot Kidder will just make a quick cameo, but we'll bring in Annette O'Toole because she's going to play Lana Lang, who everybody knows in the comic books. And then they were actually doing Supergirl at that time too.
Yeah.
And Supergirl was just, I don't know what to make of Supergirl.
They just overwhelmed
Helen
themselves.
Slater was great as Supergirl. That's what, she really knocked it out of the park. But yet again,
and I feel sorry for Helen Shaver because she has been a decent actress in so many other things, but
yeah,
you can't do anything if people aren't going to frame you the right way, and actors aren't. The other cast isn't going to take it seriously and throw the tone off.
Well, Brenda Vaccaro tells a story how they were doing Supergirl, and she was walking out. They were walking out, and there's Faye Dunaway thought she was like the star of the movie.
Yeah. Long story short, I knew someone who was basically kind of a hack producer. I won't name him because I don't want to be sued, but
okay.
The long story short, she worked with Dunaway on some stupid indie movie, and long story short, Dunaway was just like, just because she didn't like the PA, just would throw any of the food just outside her trailer.
And Brenda Vaccaro said it. If you watch the Brenda Vaccaro interview with Gilbert Gottfried, which is like the last one he did, she tells the story about what it was like working with her. Because she was
a big Superman fan.
No, well, he was, but I don't think he was.
More in
he was.
Seinfeld
he was.
Way, just
wait, I take it back. He was in Superboy. He played Knick Knack. And then he played Mrs. Picklick, or what I used to call Mr. Mitzelplick. And then he played Mr. Mitzelplick, and then he played Mitzelplick's superior with the Bela Lugosi voice.
Nice.
Yes.
And you got to find it online. It's hilarious because he does the Lugosi voice. But the thing that gets me is like, the Superman 2 and 3 were just god awful. I mean, granted, there's the one part in Superman 3 that I love where he fights
himself at the end.
Fights himself.
The clone. That's like the only thing well thought out.
But they didn't want to get Gene Hackman back because he was, as I said, a lot of the people were still pissed at the Salkinds for doing what they did to Dick Donner, because Dick Donner basically had that baby in the can. And then they just said, you're going over budget. We're going to bring in Richard Lester to be an in-between. And then, the reviews for Superman 2 were great.
Did Reeve direct part 3? Who directed part 3?
It was Richard Lester.
Okay.
Richard
Lester was still there. Okay. Gotcha.
Richard Lester did part 2 and part 3. Because with part 2, you had this, I think you had to do like 45% of the movie.
Yeah,
or
that's what Donner
something
estimated.
Like 55% of the movie to get a directorial credit. So he reshot a lot of the scenes. And Superman: The Quest for Peace, as I wrote about it, and I think you might have read it, Tom, and you might have read it, Cameron. It almost killed that franchise, and it would take Batman to bring comic books back, and even that went downhill.
You know
Nothing
the whole
against.
story behind the Nuclear Man actor?
Yeah, he was just some guy they found.
He was a Chippendales guy, and he now owns a private law firm here in US.
And Mark Pillow was interviewed. He's like, yeah, they just said, do you want to play the Nuclear Man? He's like, yeah, sure. So, you know, he worked with Christopher Reeve. He liked working with him. But there's a scene where they have the first Nuclear Man. Have you ever heard that story?
I think I have.
It's
to Sidney J. Fury.
Sidney J. Fury directed it, and I'm not putting anything against Sidney J. Fury because he's a great director.
Yeah, no, I got no issue. I've always loved seeing his various Dolph Lundgren movies, The Boys and Company C, and everything.
Yeah, I when I read his Jaws 2, I was like, he did Jaws 2? Holy shit, you know.
Wait, no, hold up.
Yeah, he did Jaws 2.
I know. It's I wish it was. It's this other guy who did a lot of Universal TV, Jeanette Chawar.
Oh, Gene the French.
Jeanette Chawar, yeah. You look at him, he's done numerous episodes.
I'm sorry. I got the two guys mixed up. I'm sorry.
No, it's like the same kind of Canadian French for hire kind of filmmaker.
But the thing with Sidney J. Fury was, you know, he was brought in. He had to shoot it. You know, even at some point, like they're going like, yeah, we're not. This isn't going to do good at all. You know, this is going to be. It opens. It doesn't make the money back it's supposed to, and they just close the franchise. They were going to do a fifth one, and unfortunately, you know, Christopher Reeve had his accident. But you know, Warner Brothers said, okay, we can wait on this, and we're going to see where things go. And you know, Batman all of a sudden took off with, you know, the Dark Knight Returns, and you know, even the Batman series took a downturn with Schumacher taking over. Nothing against Joel Schumacher, you know, great director, did some really good movies. But those two movies, you know, Batman and Robin and Batman
Forever, yeah.
Batman Forever were just like, I almost had a seizure watching it because they're just so big and bright, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, you know, cut the colors down, pal, you know. You know. Batman has his own credit card. You know.
Yeah. He never leaves the Batcave without it. Now, I'm also gonna. These are kind of related because of the franchise, but they come at it from different perspectives. I'm talking about the original Planet of the Apes and the new Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
the original Planet of the Apes. The first one was phenomenal.
Yes,
phenomenal. Then we have Beneath the Planet of the Apes. It took a nosedive. It's one of those that I try to watch every so often, and I can't get through it. But then it starts building back up again, and then it goes up until
it's too robotic.
Of the conquest.
It really is robotic. Like, you don't get any of Burton's usual style. You don't even know why they hired him for that. And again, no, I love Rick Baker to death. I hate how he got a bad deal and just said, "Hey, screw you, Hollywood. You're just not paying me enough or giving me anyone who knows how this whole process with makeup works."
Tom,
and go ahead. The Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, absolutely unwatchable.
Oh
yeah. As a fan of the original series, I can't recommend it at all. Into it.
Yeah.
It was Drac.
It was shit.
The only redeeming factor was that it did have a cameo by Charlton Heston.
I think that's giving it too much credit, but fair enough.
And Linda Harrison was in it too. Nova was in it. She played the old woman in the cart when they capture Mark Wahlberg.
For real?
She's the old woman with the gray hair.
That was my issue too. Like, just like early J-Lo, I was just never keen on early Marky Mark just because he was like Ice Cube. They would throw him in there and he wouldn't take any direction from the filmmakers. And it sucked because I wanted to see it just out of curiosity. You know, critics were mixed. Roger Ebert was like the only one who thought the ending had any kind of thought. But see, that was why the general public thought it was stupid. My father was like, whatever you do, don't watch that. I know you like special effects movies. My mother, who was not well read up on that franchise, thought that was the only version of Planet of the Apes. I'm like, heavens no.
No.
And my uncles were mixed on it, and it was hard to get a reading from them because they like anything sci-fi, good or bad. So I was stranded in the middle of this fucking movie, and yeah, I can't recommend it at all.
The way I see it is, Planet of the Apes, the first one in '68, is a great movie, right? The Beneath the Planet of the Apes, okay, they had their budget cut. You can tell the monkey masks are there and everything like that, and it's kind of like they kind of go, okay, the ending, where do we go from here? So then they do Escape from Planet of the Apes. It's a lot better, and then they do Conquest, and I think Battle for Planet of the Apes.
There's an uncut version of it now in the Blu-ray set.
Yeah.
Yes.
Battle for Planet of the Apes, phenomenal. And there's a cut scene there where you watch the one part where they're like, should we use the bomb or not? And you're thinking to yourself, okay, now you think about the Hassline timeline. Will it repeat itself over and over again? And then they've done the last couple versions of Planet of the Apes where there's a lot of callbacks to the original, because I think the guys were renting were going, the part where Caesar comes on the horse and he's got the rifle in the air. My buddy went to go see that. People were cheering because they remember that from the series. At the end when the ape had the rifle in the air, because everybody loves that TV series, and I think that'll set up the TV series. To be honest with you,
it really did. And there's a great comic, if you can find it, from Titan that apparently makes it in a way they kind of help figure out just how to combine it with the show, any plot holes of who else was in the bunker beneath, as well as find a creative way to actually tie it in with the reboot trilogy. And it's really solid because even the people who still work on it at Marvel and everything, they're on the same boat where they're like make just zero mentions of the 2001 movie. There's just no debating it. It doesn't work at all. But
that movie, Tim Burton dipped his hands, and I'm sorry, I love Tim Burton as a filmmaker. He's going to make Beetlejuice 2, thank God. But when he did Planet of the Apes, I had such hopes for it, and then I watched it, and I walked out of that movie theater, and I went,
money back.
And my girlfriend at the time, my ex-wife, my girlfriend at the time, she was like, "What'd you think?" And I was like, "I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna get the movies, and I'm gonna watch them, and I'm gonna watch them back to back to back, and then I'm gonna watch the TV series, and then I'm gonna go home. Then I'm gonna go up and find Tim Burton, and I'm gonna slap him in the face,
dick slap.
And I'm like, you should not have left Batman,
Yes, and I will throw in a related plug. There was a crossover event between the original Star Trek and Planet of the Apes.
That's a great
called
comic.
The Primate Directive.
Oh
If
yes.
you find it, get it, read it,
It's
love
a great read.
Oh yeah.
There's several other Planet of the Apes things, and I'm just glad that they still have honored it. Like, enough people have read the Riot Act and said, hey, this is what Fox should be proud of, remaster them. I think some of them are on Disney Plus in Canada, but I'm just glad that people are re-embracing them. Like, if you're going to watch new Mission Impossible, new Star Trek, please watch the older ones after you've seen the new stuff. And this movie, this 2001 movie, did not do that because it didn't know what it wanted to be. Fortunately, it didn't set it up for a sequel, but that was also kind of the worst part, in that you just didn't know what you had watched. You just felt like it was like the stupidest, like, lesser Twilight Zone episode, and the ending didn't have any bite to it. It was just meant to shock, but there was nothing to latch onto. You're just like
what happened?
For nothing.
What happened? Were they on? They were at another planet, and the planet.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, what the fuck is going on here?
When
the
movies started being too much like The Matrix or Total Recall, that's where I was like, see, but you don't know why those movies worked. You just are looking at the shocking moments on TV and saying, "Oh, we could do something like that." Yeah, but it doesn't suit the movie.
and that's a thing that we can really take from the original Planet of the Apes. Just because you have one bad movie does not necessarily mean that you have to continue down that route. You can actually build on it. I will maintain to this day that Conquest of the Planet of the Apes is one of my favorites of the original series. Because,
we will talk about it. I swear we will. But it is.
Well, we have to.
It is interesting
the ending,
Go ahead.
The ending, Tom, that they put in originally, that is scary. That is scary.
Yes.
It gave me and Tom, you've seen the tacked on ending and the original ending.
Mm-hmm.
And the original ending where Caesar just basically just gives the order to just do them in. I'm like, holy fuck, man.
He's a fascist at that point. He's like, kill squad, engage.
Yeah.
And then they have it where, he's like, well, we're not going to do that now. We're going to, we will work with humans and see, but this is the plan, the time has come for the Planet of the Apes. And I'm like, okay, this works more for me. The first one worked more for me because it showed you this is what happens when you, and I'm going to use some rude line, when you fuck around with people that are any person.
They won't take any more.
They won't take any more, and they're gonna fucking put you under the bus, And that's the one thing I love about Conquest,
Yeah, the original Conquest for me is one of my favorite of the original series because it had so many layers to it.
Yeah,
the new one I absolutely loved. I mean, as I've watched the newer ones, I've started to forgive Tim Burton a little bit, but because the other movies have taken that, learned the lesson from the flop, and built a mythos that honors the original while taking it in a direction that you maybe hadn't.
You could coexist in it. They say it's not, but hey, they don't reject any of the notions. And again, they knew how to blend. Just bringing in Weta, who, again, like Lord of the Rings, will not compromise. They will make sure every time the visuals are telling the story. That's why I like both them and Pixar. They are some of the few who realize, hey, you can't shorten either side of this. You got to make it all matter. You got to make it all combine. If you take a shortcut, one's going to suffer versus the other. Like, the acting might be great, but the story now makes no sense because you cut out 5 scenes.
Yeah.
Or you won't do this one visual sequence, which tells you everything you need to know in 5 seconds. That could...
I'll give you a case of a point where a movie was great and the sequel is kind of like meh. Okay, True Grit, the original John Wayne movie.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do Rooster Cogburn with him and Katie Hepburn.
Yep, that's a fun one.
And it's kind of like, all right, he had to come back one more time to do that role. Katharine Hepburn and him are not exactly, they're getting up there. And John Wayne to me is like, he's a great American actor, but real asshole in real life.
Yep.
But
especially funny how he was friends with Clint Eastwood, and yet all he would do was just talk trash about spaghetti westerns. They're too unethical and violent.
like the three, okay, a great case of but that's a movie like Rooster Cogburn. You're kind of like, oh, he's back as Rooster Cogburn.
Surprise.
That's great. The eye patch, yeah. Gee, the eye patch again, Duke. Oh boy, this is gonna be fun. I've watched it, and True Grit is great. Rooster Cogburn falls flat because I can't see Katharine Hepburn going, "They're shooting at us. They're shooting at us." I'm like, oh Jesus God.
It has okay action, but the villain is really, really lame in this movie. Like, I could understand if it's a greedy land baron or someone being a hammy evil sheriff, but I still I saw it completely uncut with grandparents who are all into westerns and everything, and I was just like, this is entertaining, but I'm very, very pissed off at the same time. What is going on? Why does he want them dead? What did I miss? I'm paying attention.
Well, the thing that gets me too is like, you want to hear a movie that bombed and it literally ruined an American icon. was the Lone Ranger
Oh yes,
in 1981. Oh
Terry
my God.
Leonard, he doubles Harrison Ford while doing the epic truck chase in Raiders. But
Yeah.
before that, he's doubling the lead in this Lone Ranger.
Clinton
and
Salisbury.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's just wild because you want to talk. No version of the Lone Ranger seems to work. Don't get me wrong, the Johnny Depp version is way worse. But yeah, this one is just very saddening to me because this could have worked, but they chose instead to, again, just have all these interconnected stunts, cut away from it so you don't really feel all that excited because it's going too fast and it wastes all these great talents. And then the story is incoherent too. Yeah.
And the background story where, Clayton Moore was not allowed to wear the mask.
Yeah.
Because the producers thought I'm going to say this right now, those fucking producers who basically told Clayton Moore, an icon, John Hart too, but they told Clayton Moore, the man who was the Lone Ranger. And I'm sorry, anyone can tell me, oh, it's John Hart. No, it was Clayton Moore. Clayton Moore was the Lone Ranger, through all those years with him and Jay Silverheels, Clayton Moore was not allowed to, so he had to wear sunglasses.
Oh God.
And wherever he went, he had to wear those sunglasses. And people basically said, no, let him wear the mask. But the movie itself, it's like, they have Waylon Jennings, doing the, it's the Lone Ranger. No. I want to hear the 1812 overture, and I want to hear a cloud of dust and a fiery hi-ho silver, let us take it back to the days of yesteryear, I want to hear that. I want to hear that, bam, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-ba-ba-ba, I want to hear that. I don't want to hear country.
Man. Yeah.
Nothing against Merle Haggard, but Jesus, I want to hear the Lone Ranger. And I want, you find out how he met Tonto and all that. Okay, that's great. But the movie was just so flat.
Yeah.
It was just
that's
flat.
Just it. It's kind of like any lesser version of Zorro. They will focus so much on a lot of really nothing, like just scenes that should take half a minute. He's setting up his horse and everything, and they just go on and on and on. And then they have Jason Robards and Lloyd and all these other guys, and you're just like, good actor. What are they doing here? Like,
it's like Wild Wild West. They fuck with Wild Wild West.
I was going to mention that. Can we save that for next
Don't
week?
Fuck with Wild Wild West. I'm sorry.
A great sci-fi Western show, and you just make this stupid Lethal Weapon Men in Black mashup, and you're just, it's one of those, I would see parts of it on TV all the time, not putting two and two together, and then you see the whole thing, and you're like, someone signed off on this.
I'm sorry.
What the hell?
I'm sorry. The Kevin Smith story about the giant robot spider?
Yeah, I've seen the documentary. It just infuriates me even more, because that is probably the biggest, just worst part of the whole thing. It's like, where did that come from?
My mom said the one thing she said is that if they had done Wild Wild West, it should have been, okay, and she said this, it should have been someone like Robert Conrad, and someone like, who's the guy who played Artemis Gordon?
Artemis was...
Ross Martin. You should have had, okay, Kevin Kline was great as Artemis, but you should have had someone who was tough enough to do, I mean, James West, okay, great, I can understand. It's Will Smith, he's coming off of
But this movie wouldn't have worked even as a standalone. Like, you look at, again, just the Thomas Brothers from Predator and The Rescue and all these other 80s cult movies, but then, again, like, they had their Men in Black director, so I get it. They were trying to go for the comedy, but the leads don't click.
Leads don't click.
Yeah, John Peters asked them to have a sex joke every other scene, because that's what a pig he was.
The villain is played by Kenneth Branagh, and they don't want it. It's Miguelito Loveless. Miguelito Loveless was played by Michael Dunn, who was a great actor. A short person, great actor. He's been in tons of other movies. You didn't like Dr. Loveless. Okay, fine. Boom, you get him. And then you got, it's like, I've tried to figure out, like, when they did all those television movies, like Lost in Space. Mm-hmm. Lost in Space, I didn't like. And a lot of people were like, and I said, there's 3 words when I say Lost in Space, the movie. No, Jonathan Harris. Jonathan Harris went on Conan O'Brien Conan O'Brien said, "Did you see the new Lost in Space movie?" And Jonathan Harris gave him a look like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Yeah.
He says, "What do you think of Gary Oldman's role?" He says, "I like Gary Oldman. He's a good actor, and I think he played the part well." And it was just like, and that's all I'm going to say, because to me, Lost in Space is always going to be, that family, and Dr. Smith and the robot, and it's always going to be fun. This was like, it was a very dark, dark, dark movie, and I think when they did the Netflix series, it was better because they brought in Bill Munny to play in the real Dr. Smith, as a tribute to Jonathan Harris, because him and Jonathan Harris were good friends,
He's
but
a musician too. Did you know?
Yeah, he's a great. He was in Barnes and Barnes. He did Fish Heads. Yeah.
Yes.
But the thing for me is, I watched Lost in Space in the movies. I walked out. I was like, I don't want to see Joey from Friends. What the hell is this all about?
And Heather Graham, and they pretty
Heather
much make
Graham,
up for it the year later. They're like, hey, you can just do Austin Powers too.
Who I just saw naked in Boogie Nights. And Mimi Rogers is the mom. John whatchamacallit as the father.
William Hurt, yeah.
William Hurt is the father. Excuse me. And they got Lacey Sherbert, whatever her name is, as Judy and Penny.
Stephen Hopkins, who was always kind of Nightmare 5, Predator 2, and Judgment Night, and here he does this movie, and he's like, I don't know what the fuck we made. I don't either.
And then you got Gary Oldman playing, Dr. Smith, where I wanted him to be Dr. Smith. I'm Dr. Zachary Smith,
and he looks like he does not want to be there the whole goddamn movie.
The whole movie, he's just looking at it going, I'm making a paycheck. Yeah, I did. This is the movie where I make a paycheck, and I know I did. The Fifth Element, which was a really great
Hannibal.
movie.
I'm sorry, but
I know I did Hannibal. I know I did this, and I know I was great. I know I was great in JFK's, but I got to do this pile of dog shit. And he's like, and I think that's where he was like.
I don't think he answers any questions on it. I don't think he thinks about it.
Because remember, he did Harry Potter like not long after that.
He did Harry Potter, but he also did Fifth Element, which for whatever reason, I don't think he's ever seen it, but he doesn't like that one either. And I think that's the thing. When he was just fresh off that and the movie he really wanted to make didn't get made, I think he was just angry because he didn't know if Hollywood was going to be kind to him or if he was just going to be generic sci-fi.
And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say this right now. He is the best Commissioner Gordon in that Batman series.
Yeah.
Yes. He is Commissioner Gordon. I'm sorry. But when he got older and he started doing these more older roles where he could, like Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Sailor, Spy. And he did, and he was doing the older roles where he doesn't want to get in the makeup anymore. He just wants to play, I hope they do Smiley's People, which I think is a great book.
Yeah, it is a good book.
Lost in Space to me, that killed it. Leave It to Beaver. Okay, that was fun to watch.
I forgot about that.
Dennis the Menace.
Yeah.
Dennis the Menace. Okay. Coneheads. Ugh. Beverly Hillbillies. Beverly Hillbillies was good. I like the Beverly Hillbillies.
And Jim Varney was good casting.
Jim Varney was good casting.
I haven't seen it a bunch, but it's a decent Sunday night watch. It's kind of in that can't be Michael Keaton kind of way. Just have fun. Don't think too hard about it. But it's way better than anything else based on the show.
The thing I love about that movie is they have Lily Tomlin as Lily Tomlin is playing who's the secretary in that? She's doing the and then Miss Hathaway.
The One Ring thingy.
And then you have Cloris Leachman playing Granny, which was great. Tops. You had Erica Eleniak, who was really funny in that. And then they do a throwback because they get Buddy Epson in a cameo as Barnaby Jones.
Right. I forgot about that.
And I thought to myself, I was like, okay, they've honored him. They gave him the, because he's always going to be Jed Clampett. But the thing I think those 90s, we'll make a TV series into a movie. It didn't. A lot of them just were like, Oh, okay.
I can deal with the Three Stooges, even though the
the
modern
Three
humor
Stooges
is lame, but the rest works pretty well, I think. But
well, there's one thing I've said about like some movies, like Brain Donors, which was a Marx Brothers movie. I don't think you guys have ever seen that movie.
John Turturro, yeah, I've seen it.
John Turturro, Bob Nelson, and
but yeah,
Smith.
it's always been a video
Smith.
Store favorite.
Yeah,
where people just didn't get it, even though the writing's kind of on the wall.
It's a night at the opera, but nobody says anything. You know, you know, because you got Nancy Marchand playing the Margaret Dumont role, and I'm watching this and I'm like going, "This is the Marx Brothers," and I actually have said in once I said it's a Marx Brothers movie, but it's a loving tribute to the Marx Brothers. And if they had done a Groucho movie, John Turturro would have been great as Groucho.
I would have accepted him. Yeah, because he's good at that straight face. Hell, if he's just playing Barton Fink doing Groucho, that is fine. But don't, like you say, don't. We're definitely gonna have to continue this next week because there's just so many other duds that material is there.
I think this is a two-parter. We need to just jump in.
We absolutely do. But the people who are out there, just talk some sense into these producers. No, if you want to make a good movie, just stick to your plan. Tell them don't have any in-movie advertising. Don't get someone who's recent, or if they're recent, have them play a part they can actually fit instead of, well, you have to play the lead and you look nothing like them.
Now, Cam, there's a point here. If they had any sense, they wouldn't be producers.
Well, if Joel Silver can figure out, anything's possible.
I worked with Irving Thalberg when we went to MGM in 1935, and we did the Night at the Opera, and then we did A Day to Races. Now, a producer is somebody who comes up with an idea for a movie, and the movies we did were pretty good. We did that, and then he died, and then we went and did Room Service, which was not a good movie. And then we did At the Circus, and then Go West, and then The Big Store. And then we did A Night in Casablanca because Chico needed the money. I just channeled dead Groucho.
Something I just realized because of what we're dealing with here.
Goldblum plays Groucho,
called Night at the Opera. We also have a Queen album called Day of the Rapist, but they didn't do any other.
The Day of the Rapist sounds like a great movie. Oh, Day of the Rapist.
That's Death Wish.
Oh,
God! We got to go over Death Wish. We got to go over the Death Wish series when we do the next part because oh my God, they were
trashy.
I'm Charles Bronson. I play an architect, Paul Kersey, and I come back and I just blow people out of their shoes. I found out something interesting about him. Any movie he did, part of his salary would go towards Jill Ireland, his wife.
Oh yeah,
who was dying of cancer. Hmm? So, like in
that's
the
why
80s,
he brought her along half the time. He's like, I don't want you away.
He's like, all right, give me like $2 million, but give $500,000 to her. She's got to get her treatments done and all that shit. And
I still have lost track of how many people would run into him just randomly and shake their hand and even offer to buy food for him. It's just very, very nice
doing?
man.
Good to see you. How you doing?
I like a cold cut combo.
Cold cut combo. Yeah.
Like a cold cut combo. Heavy on the salami. My real name is Charles Bukowski. I didn't notice.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.